Hi everyone, Tim the Plane Man here, and welcome to Gee Bee Sportster E Flight Controller Edition. So it's time to do the electronics. Everything is pretty much mechanically good and ready to go. It's time to put the electronics in because I can't put the wings on until all the wires are in. So what I'm going to do with this plane, just to keep it interesting for some of us, is I'm going to be putting an Ardupilot flight controller into this plane. So I've basically positioned it here. If you can see in there, that's how the flight controller is going to be. I'm not going to have a pilot in the plane. I'm going to have an autopilot in the plane. The autopilot is going to sit right there in the cockpit. So what I'm going to do next is I haven't mounted that in there yet. That's just placed in there so you can see how it's going to be. This is the beautiful Qio-Tek H743 flight controller. I like it for a lot of reasons, including the fact that all the connectors are already made, and mostly what I need to do is just plug the right piece of equipment into the right socket, do some parameter setting. It is Ardupilot after all, and it'll work. There's no kind of soldering and figuring out which wire needs to go to which pad on the board and that kind of thing. It's really a very nicely packaged flight controller, and I really like it. Do highly recommend it. And I will be using this Zealot H743 flight controller to control this plane, and stay tuned, but we will be doing some very, very interesting things with that. So stick around if you're interested in connecting a flight controller in particular. Although it's kind of fun and interesting to see how I'm going to basically get this to work with the Sportster, the Gee Bee Sportster. But I've also had people ask me exactly how everything gets connected up to a flight controller. And I do have some videos that show how I've done this before with, for example, the Pix Racer, and also with the Zealot H743 that I have installed in my Solid model binary. But what I haven't done is shown connecting each component piece by piece, and that's what I'm going to do in this video. So it'll be long. Some of you, it'll be boring. Feel free to skip the whole video if that's not your thing, or you can skip to the end and see how it will look all connected together. I'll put the timestamps, the chapter markings on the video, and links in the description so that you can see how it looks at the end if you want to jump to that part, how everything will work, and it will work. But if you do need to see how do I connect the power, how do I connect an airspeed sensor, how do I connect the servos, how do I connect the ESC and the motor, there's going to be information about all of those pieces in this video. So stay tuned, should be fun. So here we have the Zealot H743 flight controller. As you can see, what I've already done is just wired some servo leads into the ports on the flight controller. And I've laid these out pretty standard AETR format. In other words, ailerons with a Y harness, which will go down to the aileron connection under the wing. That's connected to the first set of pins on the servo rail here. Elevator is connected to number 2. Throttle is connected to number 3, and rudder is connected to number 4. Now there is a reason for doing it, for me connecting this up like this for this particular build, and that is because once I mount that flight controller here inside the cockpit, it's going to be pretty much almost impossible, for example, to unplug or plug in those connectors if for whatever reason I need to unwire things, disconnect things in the plane, or even remove the flight controller, for example. So what I've done is I've just decided to put servo extension cables into the relevant ports on the flight controller here, and then I'll run those down inside the plane underneath, and then I'll be able to connect the relevant extension wire to either you can see I've got it here, to either the rudder and elevator, or to the ailerons, or to the ESC. So that will make it very easy to manage the wires going in and out of the flight controller sitting in the cockpit here by just running those down inside the plane and then connecting them from the inside. That also explains a little bit of a spider's web here, but it does make things quite simple and easy in terms of connecting everything.